So, the last few videos I've made, I don't know, maybe the last 2 weeks, I've been talking about how the government has really, in my mind, overstepped their bounds. And they're just constantly doing it. Every day, it seems like there's something new. So I want to go through a few things that is going to directly affect your life, my life, and what you can do to overcome it. Now, obviously, I live off-grid, and I also live in a tiny house. So things don't affect me nearly as bad as they affect folks who have regular appliances and a regular house and regular lives. And so I try to communicate to you how to reduce your need to live off someone else, like the electric company or the government. Try to live self-sufficiently as much as possible. We hear about preppers talking about this stuff all the time, except preppers rely on people to take care of them when they start stockpiling. And the only way they can deal with things is go out and buy more, and eventually they're going to run out of stuff when whatever bad thing happens. So I've talked to you about the wood stove, and the wood stove is a good example of something they're going to ban. Now, that affects me more than it affects you, obviously. Most people don't have wood stoves. Now, I said that. There are probably a lot of people in my audience who do have wood stoves, but they are trying to ban these. More municipalities ban these all the time because of the smoke that comes out of it. And I've tried to explain several times, and I'm going to explain again in this video. Bear with me. There's a lot of stuff I want to cover. So they're going to ban things that are in your kitchen. And they already are banning these things. So stick with me. This is important. So the wood stove, for most of mankind, has always been this inefficient thing where they just kind of throw some logs in and hopefully there's some heat that comes out of it. But these newer wood stoves are very efficient, especially if used correctly. Don't want to spend a lot of time on it, and I'm going to link a video, the up next box at the end of this video. You'll just click in and take you over to where I explain this in a lot more detail. But this thing is very efficient. It has these reburners in them. Some people call them afterburners or air tubes or whatever you want to call them, but they're right here. What these do is get real hot, and they burn the smoke. So smoke comes up, hits them, and it flashes this blue flame. It's very pretty. But the only way to really make that work well is to use dry wood. Wood that has had a chance to get the green out of it, if you want to call it that. And so you can get a moisture tester. You let it dry for a couple years, and then you get a moisture tester, and it'll tell you if it's below 20% or below. And you put that in there, you won't get any creosote in your chimney, and you'll get very little smoke. This one here is only 85% efficient. You can get some now that are like 90-95% efficient. That means that the smoke is not going out the chimney anymore. It's just some fumes, kind of like natural gas. You see it in the smokestacks in the city. They're not really smoke, it's just the gas heat coming out of it. We don't use much firewood because we live in a tiny house. We can heat this house with what's called a portable buddy heater. It's a little camping heater. You can hook that up to a 1-pound propane tank like this one, and it'll heat your house for several hours. And this house is only 200 square feet, so it's about the size of a bedroom, a big bedroom. And that little heater heats it up pretty well on a cool day. But this thing, 8 hours, easy. Throw a couple logs in it. I mean, and we're talking sticks. I mean, this is basically a stick. I don't know, you can compare it to my hand maybe. Get 3 of those, throw it in there, and it'll heat the house for 8 hours. If you have a bigger house, obviously it's going to take more to heat. I would suggest, as natural gas prices are going up, electric prices are going up, that you try to start closing off some of the rooms in your house. If you're going to get a wood stove, that way you don't use a lot. Again, you really need to get dry firewood. That's hard to come by if you're trying to buy it from somebody. They'll season it for 6 months and say it's dry. But if you're going to use oak, it needs to take 2 years. Now, I think this might be sycamore. I don't know. It really looks weird. Anyway, whatever it is, I can tell it's dry. It's hollow. You can hear the hollowness in it. But the EPA has put a lot of restrictions on this. Municipalities are banning them left and right. So if you're not getting any smoke out of the chimney, nobody's going to know you got it. They're going to be harder to buy eventually. Now, some states are giving tax credits on these. All the while, the EPA is not wanting you to use it. Another thing that they're talking about banning, and this is going to affect you, is natural gas appliances. Your cook stove, your cooktop, your oven that you cook food into. 80 municipalities around the country, the United States, have already banned them, mostly on the West Coast. Now what they're saying is that these stoves put out as much emission as a car. It's ridiculous. I don't even understand what they're telling me, because it doesn't make sense to me. But it doesn't matter. They're already banning them. So think about all the appliances that you may have that you use natural gas for. So your stove in the house. Now they're also saying, and this is what they always do, just like the wood stove. Oh, it's going to make you sick. With the wood stove, it makes your neighbors sick. Or if you open the stove, all those fumes coming out, going to give you asthma and make your lungs, and that's what they try to do to sell you on the idea, because they know that the environmental subject isn't really appealing to everybody. But if it says, oh, it's going to make you sick, you'll listen up. Oh yeah, it does make me sick. All that smoke coming in, it's like smoking a cigarette. It's terrible. Well, they're saying the same thing about gas stoves. They're saying that the gas stove produces so much toxic fumes that it can cause asthma. So you got to switch over to electric. Well, let's think about all the appliances you have in your house that could use natural gas. So now you have to get rid of your gas stove in the kitchen. I thought most people have one of those fans that sucked all the fumes out of the house above their stove, but apparently most of the country is too stupid to have one of those. I don't know. My stove's outside, so that's a pretty big bonus. But another thing they're talking about is your furnace. If you have a natural gas furnace or a blue flame, they're trying to ban those too. Electric heat is much more inefficient than gas heat. And it goes like this. Propane is the most efficient. Then you have natural gas, second most efficient. Then you have electric. I mean, and electric's just terrible. It really does not do a good job heating your house. Obviously, wood stove is the most efficient, especially if you have one of these new wood stoves that have the afterburners on them, the reburners. What I don't understand is, how do they think they're going to get enough electricity to heat that many homes throughout the country? We already know that California told everybody they had to have electric cars by, I think, 2035. But as soon as they said it, then the very next week they had to shut down the electric grid and tell everybody that they couldn't charge their cars because they didn't have enough electric. Well, that brings me to the other conclusion. They're wanting to reduce the human population down to 500 million people. So we'll just freeze them out, tell them, and starve them out because they can't use gas heat. Now, how are you going to cook? You got to go and get a new appliance. And then we're talking about several thousands of dollars to replace all your appliances. Maybe your dryer, your kitchen stove, your water heater, your furnace. Now, I'm a big advocate of buying propane items, things that you can run the 20-pound tanks off of. So we have several of these. This is the oldest one, but we get these little Coleman camp stoves, and we do all our cooking off this tank. Cooking 2 meals a day and 2 pots of coffee a day will last us well over a month. Now, I'm not suggesting you put that in your house unless, of course, you have ventilation, because again, I mean, it can cause fumes. But if you put a carbon monoxide detector in there, it'll read before you get sick from carbon monoxide. But of course, if you have that little fan, you can put it in your house. But I like cooking outside. And Carolyn even likes cooking outside in the wintertime. She enjoys using this little stove, a little back porch. And in the springtime, man, there's nothing better than making breakfast out here watching the deer. And the leaves are just now changing color in the springtime. So you can see all the deer still pretty clearly, and they're out there eating the greens, drinking your coffee. We got to start thinking differently about how we live life. If they're trying to get us off the planet, we just as well make ourselves small. And so we have a tiny house and we cook on the back porch. And now the other thing that I think you ought to look at is your water heater. The water heater, whether you're into the environmental stuff or not, so I'm going to apologize for the lighting right now. This is my shower, and the lighting is going to flicker. I do apologize, nothing I can do about it. We have this little lantern that's what we use for light in this house, and it's only not a good idea when I'm using the camera. So here we have what you can see, the bottom half of our water heater. Now, you could use these in a house. I know people who have done it. You can replace your water heater. The water heater is the most inefficient thing you can buy because it heats up even when you're not using it. You got this tank of 50 gallons of water, or whatever size you have, and it's got to stay hot all day long. So while you're at work or you're on vacation, that thing's still running. Kicks on every few hours, heats the water back up. Well, if you get an on-demand water heater, it only heats water when you turn it on. Now, this is a little camp water heater, and I think it's called Camplex or something like that. You can go on Amazon and find these. This one's brand new. We got an old one up in the attic. I thought it went bad. It didn't. The pump that we use to pump water into the house is what was going bad. So I'm glad I didn't throw it away. These are pretty easy to use. All you got to do is turn up the temperature right here. And while you're taking a shower, you can do this. Now, if you have any idea on how to do plumbing at all, you could take out your water heater and hook this up in your water heater closet or whatever you got. It's not hard to do. This is the water inlet right here. You just have to buy the proper fittings. We use the hose. This, like I said, this is a camping water heater. You can get a shower tent for your campground. You can pump water through a hose. So we just hooked it up through a hose. You could do the same thing in your shower. Just run the hose from outside, your faucet outside, and you could hook this up into your shower just like we have, or you can put it in your water heater. Get two of them, one in your shower, one for your kitchen sink. We have this little on and off switch right here. You can just turn it on. You hear it click, 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 click. The flame shoots on, and then the water comes out. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but up there underneath you should be able to see blue flames. So those blue flames are heating the water as it's passing by. So it's only heating water that you're using. Much more efficient. Now this runs off propane. This is the propane hose right here. Again, we use a little 20-pound tank. I can't remember the last time I changed this. Again, it's probably a month or two that a propane tank lasts for us. But we use this for everything. We don't have a cold water faucet, so we turn this all the way down. And of course, it still lights up. There's a way to shut it off. I'm not going to get into that right now. So if you are hooking it up into your hot water system, you can still use your cold water faucet and hot water faucet just the same. My dad, he was building a house, and so he was living in a fifth wheel, and he replaced the fifth wheel water heater with this, and it ran all the showers and the sink, everything. I didn't even know these existed until my dad bought the first one we had. I will never live without one of these again. You can go and get one of those household water heaters, and they're really expensive, and plumbers are going to tell you not to use it and all that stuff, but these are real cheap. These are like 150 bucks. So even if you had to replace it every few years because of the calcium that build up, which I have not experienced. I had one, I guess, for 4 years, and it's up in the attic right now, still usable. With water heaters nowadays, if you have an electric one, you got to replace those elements all the time, and those are get up 40, 50 bucks. If you had to replace those 3 times, you're at the same price as this. So yeah, they're going to ban everything, and I'm telling you, we need to prepare now. So if you click this up next box to take to that video I was telling you about with the wood stoves, so if I can inspire you to start thinking small so you can live big. Thanks for watching.